Hi, everybody. So today we have the people who can actually tell us what to do with our offices based on everything that we have heard today. So Peter, if you want to start us off, I was wondering if you can kind of tell us where offices are going from your point of view.
Great question. And, you know, the topics today have been such a great setup, I think, for our session. So from our work with IDC research, 70% of all companies will be hybrid by 2025. In addition, 90% of all companies will invest in the smart workplace, and 70% of all companies will have a work from anywhere strategy. So per IDC and Gartner, we're moving from a world where work was designed around the office and around location to where work is being designed around the individual. So individual flexibility, individual choice, intentional digital workplace experience, health, wellness, and well-being as a result of the pandemic, and the opportunity to look at the workplace as sort of regenerative as a peak experience. And if I'm only at the workplace 2 or 3 days a week, how do I ensure that I'm giving that peak experience to my employees for all the great conversation that we had this morning so they find a sense of purpose and they feel committed to the organization? So the hybrid world is very real, and it's expanding, and it's a time of experimentation, and we'll talk a little bit about that today during our dialogue.
I have to say, when I hear peak experience, I do not think of my workplace. I've heard you talk about the workplace as an employee benefit. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, great question. I'll use a little bit of a historical reference. So post the 2008 Great Recession, companies looked at people, workplaces, even infrastructure, all in the terms of cost and cost management and cost optimization. Around 2012, 2015, the tech companies started to look at the workplace as an investment. And so today, in the post-pandemic realm, companies are really looking at their workplace as an investment and a value proposal for their employees and for their workforce. And I'll use Accenture as an example, an organization we do a great deal of work with. You know, the Accenture peak experience for their employees is as valuable as the compensation, as valuable as the technology, that ability to provide flexibility, to provide services, amenities, connection, engagement as a value prop for the employees. And in the great resignation, 69 million Americans resigned their positions in 2021. And so the talent wars are with us. And as a result of the talent wars, the pandemic, the focus on health, wellness, well-being, purpose, compassion, empathy, employees are looking for a value proposal from their organizations. And those leading organizations that provide that value proposal are winning the war for talent. And glad to share more as we discuss today.
Yeah, absolutely. Jennifer, you've said something interesting. You said that the office, people don't want the office to feel like an office. And I was wondering what you mean by that. Like, where are we going if our office doesn't feel like an office?
That's right. Well, we know, and research has proven to us, that the space that you're in matters. It influences your energy level, how you feel, how productive you are, how creative you can be. And so if that environment isn't supportive of you feeling good, then you don't want to be there. And this is really topical, and a lot of the conversation this morning was people don't want to return to the office because the impression of the office is open environment with seas of workstations, maybe private offices that are taking all of the natural daylight. And that's just not a place that fosters connectivity, creativity. So it's really taking that square footage of space and saying, if work can be done, heads down focus work can be done virtually and at home, then change the purpose of why you're going into the office and then design spaces to support that. So really making sure that there is a variety of different spaces that offer different ways to connect, whether it's larger meetings, creative brainstorming sessions, a lot of different things that you can't get at home. So it really has to be better than what you get at home to draw you out of your house.
Yeah. Can you show us what some of these peak
Yes,
some of what these
yes.
peak experiences might look like?
Absolutely. I think
Here we go.
there we go. I'm actually going to go back. So this is an example here of an office that we recently completed. This is for a marketing team. And again, the Be Bold is one of their tenets of their team. So this is when I come to the office, I need to feel connected to the purpose and the mission of the work that's being done. But this is seamlessly integrated into the space. The other image here is actually a hidden room behind a bookcase. So it is meant to be this secret space that people want to have meetings in. This is not something I have in my house. So I want to come, I want to do this, I want to have meetings here. And it doesn't feel like your traditional office space where you're sitting around a cold table in an environment that is not warm and friendly. This is the kitchen it's a full functioning kitchen for lunches, but it's also meant to really be that amenity space where people can sit down, they can do work, they can have collaborative sessions, they don't have to book a room to use this space. And so it really fosters that just relaxed environment that I want to be at. And then here again is another way to connect. So it's about that flexibility of space and really offering a lot of different amenities. The other image is a wellness room. So it's expanding things that people have grown comfortable doing at home, whether it's meditation, religious prayer, anything that could be used. These are rooms that can be booked and used in whatever capacity, where right now people can do that easily at home, and they may have some anxiety about returning to the office and not being able to do things that are really important to them. And then one more I'll go through. Again, nothing that I'm showing here is desks. It's not sitting down and doing the heads down work. This is a creative collaborative space where this team pins up ideas. The cork boards move and they stack on top of each other, so there's a lot of flexibility here. But this is coming together as a team so you can brainstorm and ideate, something that's incredibly difficult to do virtually. These are the in-person connections that matter. And here again, there's a curtain so that you can visually separate yourself from the rest of the work that's going on the floor plan.
We have an audience question. How can businesses that are on smaller budgets or already kind of are locked into whatever their office plan is, if something like this looks appealing, how do they get there budget-wise?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things that can be accomplished in a variety of budgets. And that's really looking at asking people what they need, tracking that, and figuring out how to utilize the space. So much of it is about creating spaces that are flexible, that can be used in a multitude of different ways. And that can span at a very cost-efficient price point, or it can be every luxurious amenity available. There's a wide span.
Peter, you talk about non-territorial office space. Can you tell me what you mean by that?
Absolutely. With our CEO of the Americas, our head of research, we published a book in the fall, The Workplace You Need Now. And in that book, we highlight the navigation to the hybrid non-territorial workplace. And again, just to share a bit of a history lesson, we've helped design over 50 corporate headquarters. And in the good old days, your corporate headquarters was like 90% offices and work settings, and they were all assigned, and they were territorial. Yeah. What we started seeing in the 2015, even through 2020 timeframe, more activity-based working and non-territorial, non-assigned settings. And then, Arianne, when the pandemic came about, and as we move into hybrid, if you're only coming in the office 2 or 3 days a week or 2 or 3 days a month, you're coming into the socialized spaces that Jennifer just shared that are much more activity-based and non-assigned and non-territorial. And again, these spaces are all technology activated, reserved via technology, and it allows for greater socialization, connectivity, and I'll just go back to the percentages for a second. We're now 80 to 90% activity-based, collaborative, almost residential. I call the office of 2023 the boutique hotel or clubhouse office. It will be much more engaging, much more collaborative, much more creative. Perhaps it will be optimized, it may be slightly smaller, but it will hopefully provide the peak experience that you so profoundly highlighted, that the people really want a peak experience coming to the office. They want to be engaged. They want to be, in some cases, entertained. And so how do we create that at a level where we can really see the value prop, again, for our people and for businesses and for talent, and achieve all those workforce and business goals that companies are so keen on achieving today?
Jennifer, you had some examples of what that space might look like in the sense of making it multi-purpose, which I think is hard for those of us who aren't designers to kind of envision. So can you show us what this looks like?
So one of the things that we did when we were planning space for this team, and this is a technology-based mortgage company, Rocket Mortgage, was we really looked at how do you create space that people can opt into how they want to work. So giving a sense of empowerment of I can go to the office and I can choose in the morning, I may need to sit down and focus at a table space, and in the afternoon, I need to meet with my team, and how can I do that throughout the day if there's only one type of work setting available to me at the office? So these images here show the built-out space in what we create, what we call neighborhoods for teams. So it is putting together a formula of different types of space that allow a team working in that space to opt in and change their space throughout the day. So things like one touch to open up a complete wall, so you can change a private space to a much larger space for a bigger team. Technology that has a seat at the table, so giving people who are virtual that inclusion that we never had before. When you were on a conference call, you couldn't see anyone, and there was a large room full of people. This image here, the monitor is right up at the table, so that person or those individuals have a seat right in the middle of the meeting. And these are all flexible, so individuals can move things around and change their environment as necessary.
Great. Are there any other images?
There's one more.
Okay.
And then again, this is another example of that technology-enabled space, but it is to be really seamless, and that is one of the keys as well, is when we talk about technology, really for people, it's can I easily move between home and office without it being an annoying experience where I can't connect and I don't know how to change that. So how do we make it easy to pick up your laptop and move from your home to your office so that that doesn't take added time and frustration? And we all know that's the world that was more prevalent 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
So both of you are currently running pilots with clients. It turns out that you don't just redesign a space and leave. It's kind of an iterative process. Peter, you told me that you have a company that's currently running 15 pilots at once. Can you tell us a little bit about this, please?
Absolutely. And actually, as JLL, we oversee 5 billion square feet of commercial real estate. And what's fascinating is our more progressive clients started piloting in mid-2020. And this one particular client, the CEO, CHRO, Chief Technology Officer, and the business unit leadership, 100,000 person organization, they said, we're going to pilot around the world in late 2020, 21, and 22. We're going to run these pilots, and then we're going to learn from the piloting experiences. And I really appreciated the earlier comments from Microsoft, who's a great partner of ours. This client, as Microsoft, Accenture, others, are taking a learning mindset. And Jennifer and I both shared this in our earlier conversation, that it's a learning process, that the workplace of the future is not one and done. It's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. It requires hybrid, pilot, experimentation, learning, and then adaptation and modification. And the winning companies that are winning the hybrid evolution are taking this approach and learning from their pilots. And then as they learn, they're sensing. So I had one client, they never asked their employees how they felt about the workplace, whether it was a peak experience or not. They never asked them. We said, wouldn't it be great if you asked your people, how do they feel about the work environment? And so now they're sensing in a very non-intrusive way every 2 weeks as to how do their people feel about the pilots, how do they feel about the amenities, how do they feel about the services. And that feedback loop is really important to ensure the spaces that Jennifer just shared, that those are being activated and they're working properly. And so this piloting journey, I will share this, some of our financial services clients, are not comfortable with failure. And sometimes pilots, have failure. But you've got to be able to take a bit of courage and risk to say, we're going to pilot something, we're going to test it, and then determine if it succeeds or fails. And I'll just add one final comment. We had a pilot in Asia Pac where the leadership there wanted everybody in the office 3.5 to 4 days a week as their pilot, 2,000 folks. Well, 6 weeks into the pilot, people were only showing up 1.5 days a week. And so this disconnect between what employees want and desire and what management wants and desire, we had to harmonize as a result of that pilot. And we settled on 2 days a week now as we're moving into the next phase of piloting. But it's an example of the learning, hybrid experimentation approach that's required in this new world of work.
So the company that's doing the 15 pilots, is the data that's coming back from all those offices the same?
No. and I will say, I've transformed 1.5 billion square feet. And in my earlier career, we would do everything the same.
Yeah.
Arianne. I mean, we would have, it was like the military. You got your computer, you got your desk, you got your chair. We're finding a lot more regional and localized diversity, both in terms of workplace design, workplace experience, workplace amenities. The technology platforms are starting to unify and evolve, but even at that, certain areas of the workplace will be more technology enabled. So a lot more diversity at a regional, localized level. And these pilots support diversity. And so people feel that they have a greater, if you will, purpose or engagement with their local office as a result of that piloting and experimentation and diversification.
So Jennifer, you were telling me about a pilot with Rocket Mortgage that was 90 days, but you changed things every 30 days, which is sort of a new way of thinking about this. So why did you do that, and what is this kind of every 30-day process?
Well, as Peter was talking about, this is really getting in the mindset of experimentation, and you don't know when you start what the end is going to be. So setting up a pilot and then starting to get survey input and censor the space and understand how people are using the space, you don't get it right from the outset. And so the pilot that we ran, every 30 days, we would change the space and make tweaks based on the data that we were getting back to further hone in and refine what that end result was going to be. And I think one of the keys to this as well is getting buy-in from the people that will be using the space. So having that voice to say, here's how I feel about it, this didn't work out for me, and then see that it is changed before that ultimate decision is made of the space, really feeling more of a sense of ownership to the final space, which is really key to getting people to want to come back in if they had a voice in the design of that space.
And where in all this do smart workplaces come in? Like, how important is this actually? Jennifer, do you want to take it first?
Sure. I mean, I would say the smart workplace is kind of the baseline. We know that people are going to be working virtually moving forward, and so if the space doesn't seamlessly support the work that's done, then it's going to be frustrating and people will stop coming. So that's just the baseline, and then building upon that is adding in all of the other hospitality amenities that we talked about so that when I'm there, I feel like I'm on vacation. It smells good, there's music, it feels good, all of those things, so I can feel like, oh, actually, I don't want to be connected to my computer while I'm here. I want to have face-to-face conversations, and I have multiple spaces that I can do that.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Jennifer just said. The activation of the smart workplace began probably 10 years ago, but it's really now going to ramp up in terms of investment. And I'll use Accenture New York as an example. I was there last week, and they have 10 floors. All of the electrical socketry is movable, and the majority of the walls are movable. So all 10 floors are changeable, movable, flexible for the longer term for the type of piloting and experimentation. And little things like you can put your smartphone on a charging station and that charging station knows that you're present. Or you walk into a room similar to what Jennifer just shared and the room knows that you're present and it's activated based upon your presence with your smartphone. So I think we're going to see a new level of sensory intelligence in the intelligent workplace. And then I'll just put in a quick plug for the metaverse, that the smart workplace is physical, but it will also be virtual in extended reality and metaverse. And you know, the projections are, it took us like 15 years to sort of get email up and running. Virtual reality in the metaverse in the next 5 years could be scaled at levels that we can't really predict. And it'll allow for another level of immersive collaboration and smart workplace engagement, you know, sort of the blurring of the physical and the digital and the virtual, you know, coming together. And those, you know, I have 9 godchildren, they're all gamers, right? And you know, they are gamified. They were raised in a virtual environment. And so taking that into the workplace of 2025 is not such a far stretch from what we're seeing, again, with some of the piloting in the metaverse.
We have a question from the audience. In the event that we have to shift to define spaces for health safety again, can this space accommodate this? So how are we integrating kind of health safety with the concepts that we've been talking about?
Sure. So one of the things we did, and Peter, you were talking about this as well, is make sure that any desk, any workstation is configured in such a way that it's very easy to pivot and be distanced or bring, you know, more density in if there's more people coming to the office. So a lot of that has to do with what things are being built into the space, like the electrical, to make it incredibly easy to pivot. And then touchless workspaces. So how do you have the ability to, you know, walk up to the door, it sees your badge, it reads and knows who you are, and the door is open, and you have, you know, really a touchless experience in as many different areas of that space as possible.
And I would add to Jennifer's comments, we're going to see a whole new era of improved indoor air quality. The air that we've breathed in office space has not been great for 50 years. And I think the pandemic really highlighted, you know, health, wellness, well-being, safety, and the cognitive improvements as a result of improved indoor air quality will be significant. And those investments are being made by building landlords and owners and occupiers. And I think there's some very interesting silver linings to a horrific, you know, pandemic experience in terms of improvement of the work environment.
Yeah. The first time I talked to you, I thought that we were going to talk about real estate, but actually most of the conversation was about behavior. What do you mean when you talk about how the future of the workplace is it more of a behavior shift than a spatial shift?
Yeah, great question. The challenge for many managers today, as we move towards hybrid, if you're accustomed to managing command and control, visibility in the office, and then all of a sudden you have all of this dynamism of people coming in 2 days a month, 3 days a week, how does one manage in this new, very dynamic, hybridized world? And so as we spoke in our prep sessions, the ability to create a change management architecture and change architecture that helps managers manage hybrid and then also helps employees. So when employees come into a beautiful space like this, they have an understanding of how does a non-territorial, activity-based, you know, neighborhood ecosystem, how does that work from a behavioral perspective? And if you think about a great airport as an example, I mean, the greatest airports are sort of designed so they're intuitive in terms of how you'll behave in those spaces. And I think we're seeing some of that come into smart workplace design so that it's intuitive, it's touchless, it's intelligent. And then the behaviors associated from management is sort of the organizational component that goes beyond that. And it's an area where many of our more progressed clients are investing because you want people to feel good about where they work and feel good about whom they work for. And then you also need to take care of the managers. It's because managers have had all the stressors and beyond that many employees have had. So it's a real management challenge, a behavioral challenge, but the more progressed companies, some of whom were here this morning on the panels, I think are addressing that in the fullest context.
Jennifer, when you visit, say, the home offices of your friends, I'm sure the question that everybody has here is, how can I make my home office a peak experience? What are some of the kind of easy things that people can do to make it better?
So really a lot of the keys are, do I have access to natural light? Bring plants into the space, add in artwork. How are the acoustics? Is it all hard surfaces, or are there some soft surfaces to absorb some of the sound? And are there flexible seating arrangements? I mean, when I'm working from home, I might like to sit at a desk for a while, and then I want to move to more of like a lounge chair like this because I'm tired of sitting at the desk. So offering yourself in your home different variety of work, and also, do I need quiet or do I need music? Music is good for brainstorming and coming up with ideas, but maybe not so good if you're trying to write something. So really, you can do that, and one of the things that has actually come up in the last 2 years is we have been designing executive home offices with the layers of technology that are exactly the same as in the office place, so you can move from your home to your workplace really easily.
If I can build on Jennifer's good examples, we had several large corporate clients who thought the pandemic would have been over like in 6 months. And so they really didn't provision at all for their employees. And now, 2 years plus almost, we're starting to see provisioning at new levels. I have one client that will provide a whole home kit for the home office at about $10,000 per employee to ensure you have the right monitors, the right ergonomics, the right audio visuals for, hybrid workplace collaboration. And I think we're going to see some interesting, again, new investment opportunities to ensure those home workers are supported not only at the executive level, but at all levels.
Peter works with a lot of Fortune 50 clients. So the calls that you're getting and the clients that you're working with, like, what are they doing generally? Are they keeping their own spaces? Are they downsizing? Are they doing smaller but nicer? Like, what's kind of the trend that's happening here?
Again, it's a very diverse landscape, and I think we're seeing clients take sort of a surgical approach to investment. So if a client, let's say, has 100 sites, are there 20 sites that we want to ensure we're investing in for those peak experiences, for strong hybrid, smart workplace, collaborative investment? The other sites may be, less investment, but still improved upon. And then looking at co-working in suburbs, we found that, folks may not want to commute 2 hours into a downtown headquarters location, but they'll go to a co-working site 10 or 15 minutes away. And it sort of allows for that separation between work and home. And I think this ecosystem approach of, the corporate office, the co-working site, the home office, the metaverse, the ability to really work anywhere and to be productive, per many of the good comments in this morning's panels, is really sort of the next evolution for the future of work.